Hi, it is a privilege to welcome you to Stand Up and Redo. It is a soulful, honest podcast hosted by me, Petra DeMuse, a woman over 50 who is navigating life's most tender transitions with courage and grace. I have weathered the storms of 2 divorces, raised children into adults, embraced the joy of grandchildren, and learned, perhaps for the first time, how to stand comfortably in my own solitude. Each episode explores the profound wisdom that comes with age, the lessons etched in heartache, the beauty found in unexpected places, the laughter that bubbles up in the quiet, and the peace that settles when we stop running from ourselves. With reflections on love, loss, aging, happiness, and the sacredness of this one wild and precious life, Stand Up and Redo is a companion for anyone who's learning to live fully after everything they thought would last has changed. This is a space for late bloomers, deep feelers, and fierce survivors. Come for the comfort, stay for the truth, and leave a little lighter each time. I am thrilled that you are back to listen to my podcast again. Thrilled. I'm so excited, and I hope that you keep listening. This episode is going to be short, not going to be long. It's thrown from the hip, or from the hip, whatever that expression is. And I am going to talk about, in this episode, being a single lady or even a single man and traveling and just safety. And actually, there's going to be a couple of episodes on this, not all in a row, but I have a lot of travel tips that I share in Reels, and I think they're fun. I really have learned through travel, just little tips and wise things to do to keep yourself out of trouble or just to help you be more efficient. But this travel tip or this episode is going to be about being a single lady. And the reason, or man, and the reason I'm telling it is just I woke up and I was kind of giggling to myself because I was thinking about last night. I stayed out till like 1:30 in the morning. I'm on vacation, and I don't usually do that. I'm not a big, I'll usually have a meal. I've tried to make a rule for myself to have a 2-drink limit, especially if it's hard alcohol, because oh my goodness, the 3rd drink does me in. And this week, a couple days, I had the 3rd drink. But I have to tell you about last night, because last night, I just have to tell you about the Uber driver. It was so funny. When I was at the hotel, I kind of like to talk to the front desk people, little questions like about safety, like ask maybe what's the most dangerous road, or what road, if I'm going to walk around town, should I stay away from? Is it safe to walk back from a restaurant in the dark? What's the safest way to go? Things like that, which, you're trusting that front desk person is not going to stalk you too or whatever, but I don't really worry about that because they usually are there to help you, and they're very helpful. I've learned so much from the front desk people, and I do ask a lot of questions. But last night I came home. I actually was hanging out with 2 gentlemen, believe it or not, who I met when I was out at a restaurant, and we ended up hopping from little bar to little bar. And I actually felt very safe with those 2 men. They were very nice men. They both just met too. All 3 of us just met, and we were all hanging out. And I truly felt a little bit more free to go to different bars with them, because we had made ourselves this little clique, this little group of hanging out, having fun. Not any kind of romantic interest or anything, just 2 fun guys, one local, one not local, and then me. And I felt safe with them. But I'll tell you just some safety tips, because when I got the Uber, the nice thing, and I'll start with the end of the night and work back. The 2 guys, it was really nice. They were going to walk back from the last bar that we went to. The last bar was a really local bar. Everybody was playing pool. It was in a little bit rougher part of town. I don't even know to say a little bit rougher, but it wasn't walkable for me to come back to my hotel.
And they actually waited for the Uber that I got to take me back. And it was really 1:30 in the morning, so it wasn't, and they say anything after midnight, like I feel like anything that happens after midnight could be really dangerous. But they waited, and I loved that they both walked up and popped their head in the window of the Uber driver and said, "Who are you here for?" And he said, "Petra." And it was kind of nice to have these two guys that were waiting with me. And then I did the thing that I want to tell you all to do. I looked at my phone, at my Uber. You're supposed to always look at the last four of the license plate. And I made sure that they matched what was on my phone. And then I always like to ask the Uber driver, just what those two guys did. I always like to say, "Who are you here to pick up?" I don't say, "Are you here to pick up Petra?" I basically say, "Who are you here to pick up?" And then a lot of times they'll say, Petra or Petra. They can't say my name right, but sometimes they do say it right. But then I know that that person is there to get me, and it's not just some random guy, going to pick me up. So those are the two things with when you're traveling, when you're getting an Uber or a Lyft. Make sure you look at their license, make sure their license matches what's on your phone, and then make sure that they're there to pick you up. And then I usually like to ask their name too. And you can see their name right on your app, but I usually like to say, "And what's your name?" And then they'll tell me their name, and then that's another check that I'm making sure that their name matches what's on my app. So there's one safety tip. And Ubering can be dangerous. I've had hundreds of Ubers, hundreds. I use Uber all the time. Matter of fact, for 8 months, I didn't have a truck or a car. So I Ubered a lot when I would go out with friends. Of course, I can't say I Ubered that much because a lot of people gave me rides, but during that 8-month period, I Ubered more than your regular regular guy. I Ubered frequently. And I love Uber. I love Uber drivers. They're very nice. They're hardworking people. They're trying to make an income. They're just like us. They're just people that are working, and they're nice people. But out of all my hundreds of times using an Uber, I've had 2 bad experiences. One was a guy that picked me up, and he was kind of doing this like weird swaying, like rocking thing while he was driving. And the only time I've ever seen people do that is when they're honestly on drugs. And he was doing like those movements that just kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I should have not let him take me to my neighborhood. I should have just said, "Oh, you can drop me off at the Sheets here," or "Oh, my buddy's there at Wawa. I see their car. Just drop me off there." I wish that I pivoted and changed the ride to a different drop-off point right when my gut told me that this guy was a creeper, and he was a creeper. He started asking me really personal questions about my life, like just too personal, and I didn't like it. And in the short ride, I just didn't feel comfortable. Everything about that ride made me feel really uncomfortable. And then he kept staring at me like intensely through the mirror, like intense, not just looking at me to make eye contact during the conversation, but just an intense, like as I wasn't talking to him or I looked away, I'd look back and he was just staring at me. It was so creepy. So anyway, he got me all the way back into my neighborhood, but I had him drop me off like 5 houses before my house. Like I said, "Oh, here, you can drop me off right here." And he dropped me off, and I had to like walk around the corner to my house. But he was like not leaving, and he was watching me, and it creeped me out. So this is really horrible what I did, because I pretended. It's actually not horrible. It made me feel safe. I started walking into my neighbor's driveway, which is about like 3 houses away from mine, because I thought, okay, just leave me alone. Didn't want him to see me walk to my house. I mean, if he was still sitting there when I got to my house, I would have just walked right by my house and just kept on walking. But I knew he was kind of like stalled there waiting, and I went into the neighbor's driveway, and this is the funny part. This UPS driver, this guy pulls up at the neighbor's house and starts running up the driveway with the box and proceeds to hand me the box. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm totally pretending like this is my house, even though it's not. And this guy's still there, the Uber driver. Well, then as the UPS guy was still there and I was talking to the UPS guy, I actually said to the UPS guy, guy, there's an Uber driver that's creeping me out and I don't actually live here. I'm just pretending I live at this house. And the UPS driver looked over at the Uber and then the Uber driver started to drive away. So I was like, oh, good, he's driving away. So as he drove away, I started to casually walk to the end of the driveway thinking, okay, he's driving away. Well, next thing I know, he does this weird pull over to the side of the road and he's all cockeyed in the side of the road. Like instead of parking on the side of the road, he like goes nose first, like almost into the sidewalk. I mean, this is like sporadic. Just another reason to be creeped out by this guy is the way he parked his car. And then, but the other creeper thing is he's literally in front of my house. I don't know if you realize it or not, because I'm just like looking at him like, oh God, he didn't leave. He pulled back over. Oh, then I'm like just standing there kind of casual, just kind of like acting like, I don't know what I was acting like. Everything happened really fast. But he puts the window down and he yells out my name, like Petra, like he's calling for me. So I walked around the car to the driver's side where he was, and I stood back like 4 or 5 feet and I said, what do you need? Are you okay? And he said, I never do this. He's like, I don't ever do this. He's like, but I want to know if you would go out with me tonight on a date. I'm like, oh my God. First off, the guy, I'm, over 50. He looked like he was like 29. He looked really young. And then I just, at that point, just played it really cool. I said, look, I have a boyfriend. And he would be mad at me if I went out. I live with my boyfriend. I said he would be so angry if I went out with you. And I basically just said, I live with my boyfriend. So I didn't live with my boyfriend actually, but I lied about it. And that's what I would always say to do is to, really just let people know. I do actually have my son who lives with me off and on, and I do have people live with me. I have a lot of people that live with me off and on, just because maybe they're a friend who needs a place to stay. I have a lot of people stay with me at my house. So I always do have people at my house, which is really nice. I feel safe. But if you're definitely pretend like, or at least let people know that you live with someone. He drove off and I never heard from him, never saw that car again. I got a little bit nervous about Ubering, but I thought, no, I like Ubering a lot. I think it's safe most of the time, but you have to be really cautious and careful. And I do suggest even having maybe the Uber not pick you up at your house, maybe walking down to a corner or to a store that's near your house or somewhere. Same thing with getting dropped off. Maybe don't get dropped off at your house, get dropped off somewhere else. But going back to last night's Uber, the guy that picked me up was very handsome. I won't say he wasn't a handsome man. He too was younger. He was probably in his 30s. His car was very neat. It was a nice car. He was a good-looking guy. As we were driving, just small talk. I don't even remember. I was still like high on having a good night. Not high on drugs, but high on having a good night that night. So got into the car. Last night was coming back to my hotel. And we were having a nice conversation. And at the end, he pulled into my hotel. We were like right in the little circle of where I was going to get dropped off. He goes, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you this, but I want to tell you something. And he acted like he was really embarrassed to talk about it. I said, oh, what is it? What did you want to tell me? Of course, then I'm curious, because I didn't even know this guy. I mean, we literally went for a mile or so drive and just casually were talking about nothing important. And he was very friendly, and he was a handsome man, like I said. And he's like, wow. And I'm laughing because I realized how ridiculous it was when he said, he goes, I do services for women. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's my side gig. And he goes, I do it, especially women who, are alone. He goes, I do like foot massages, full body massages. I said, oh, that is such a great business to be in. I said, there are so many women that really need that. And I was just like, I thought it was funny because I was thinking about it. I honestly was thinking, I was thinking, that is such a great business. There are women who really never get, they're alone and they don't really want a connection, but they need that physical touch. I said, what a great, great business. I said, are you married? And he said, yeah, I'm married. I said, oh. I said, does your wife know you do that business? He goes, oh yeah, she totally knows. He goes, she knows it's just for us to make money and we need the income or whatever. And I said, wow. I said, great. I said, I hope that, you're successful with your business. And I just said, I don't need that service though. Thank you for telling me about it. And then I got out of the car and he just, of course, said, you're beautiful. He's like, I can see why you don't need that kind of service. He goes, you're absolutely beautiful, which of course made me feel really good. My head is getting really big. But at the same time, I just thought it's like crazy. You have to just, ladies and gentlemen, you have to just be careful when you travel. Honestly, be careful, be careful, be careful. The other tip I want to give you is not related to Uber drivers anymore, but is related to drinks. It's related to when you go to the bar and you leave your drink and you have to go to the bathroom. I am terrified if I go out alone. First off, I don't usually go out alone late like I did last night. Last night was a unique situation. And I think it's because I am on vacation, and couple nights before, I just settled in after dinner and watched TV and was kind of wanted to go out last night. Actually, I didn't want to go out last night. I almost did the same thing. I almost just went to the hotel bar with my workout clothes on, ordered takeout and brought it to the room. But I forced myself to get cleaned up, freshened up, put more makeup on, put a little perfume on, put some sexy shoes on. Well, I call them sexy. I like shoes. Put on nice shoes and go out for the night. And I'm happy I did because I had a great time. But especially if you're drinking alcohol and you're first off, spread out your alcohol. Don't do shots. Drink a lot of water between. I usually have a two drink max, but last night I did have a third drink and I didn't even finish it, honestly, because I kept putting it down to dance and I just left it there because once I walk away from a drink, I don't want to drink it again. So I had taken a couple of sips of my third drink out with the two guys that I was hanging out with and was dancing and just left it there. I just didn't go back and drink it again. And then I just got water to drink. First off, tips when you're drinking alcohol, always drink a glass of water in the middle of every alcohol that you drink, every alcoholic beverage, because if you drink a little more than you usually do, I can guarantee you're going to get a headache or not feel so good the next morning. But anyway, also drinking and being out alone. I went hiking in a bar in Maryland, and I thought it was so hysterical. It was a nice bar. A lot of business people were there, and I was hiking. I was in my hiking clothes or work. I was doing a 3 mile. I like to do 3 mile walks at night, either before or after dinner, and this was an odd situation. I had hiked through this really cool town. I liked history, so I like to go to either old towns. Well, I love to go in the woods, but I have to go if there isn't a safe place to hike in the woods. That when I go hiking in the woods, I don't hike in the creepy woods. I hike in woods where I know it's a public trail. I know there's a lot of people that hike there. I really search out my trail cautiously and carefully. But this day I was at a town. It was a neat old town in Maryland. And in this town, I walked 2 miles and it started to rain on me. And I was going to walk 3 miles and then I was going to go have dinner. But because it was the 2 mile point and it rained, I walked into this little pub. And I look at ratings too. It's kind of fun. Like I'll look at restaurants on Google Maps, and then I usually go for the price point. I'll go for the best price point, but also the highest rated. I've learned to look at what the restaurant is rated like, because I've gone to restaurants that look really good and the food is horrible. And for me, it's all about the food. Honest to God, it's all about the food. So if the place, and so I look at not just what the rating is, but also how many people rated it. Like if there's only like 5 people that rated the place and it's a 5, no, I won't go there. But there's like 300, 400, 500, 1,000 people that rated it and it's like a 4.5, 4.6, then it's valid. It's real, I think. And I will go to that restaurant. And that's been a really successful way for me to first find good food. And then second, of course, find a good price point. But I did that, and I went to this pub that was so quaint, so cute, sat at the bar, little rained on, and ordered a drink and ordered my meal, like a burger. And it was that kind of rain that I knew was going to pass. So I have this also obsessive thing with walking 3 miles. It's psycho, or running 3 miles. Sometimes I run, sometimes I walk, depending on time. And this night I was walking. So I knew I had to do a mile left of my walk. And anyway, I laughed because the guy that was like 4 bar stools over from me, he was handsome. He was about around my age. He took his phone and he put it over top of his drink and then went to the bathroom. And when he came back, it was the first time I started talking to him. He started laughing. He goes, "Did you notice how I protected my drink from getting roofied?" And I started laughing. I said, "Oh, did you have your camera? Did you have the video recording at the same time so you could tell that nobody picked up your phone to put the roofie in your drink?" I said, "Because I so could have roofied your drink right now." And that was our starting conversation. And actually that guy ended up walking. He ended up walking a mile with me. After we had dinner, we ended up shooting the breeze. Shooting, you know what I was going to say, and I stopped myself from cursing. But anyway, so we actually talked, and then he said, "What are you doing after you eat?" Because obviously he wanted to hang out longer. And I said, "I'm going to walk a mile because I have to add a mile to my walk." And he goes, "Okay, I'll walk with you," which I don't think was his plan for the evening, but he walked. And we actually had a really nice conversation, but he kept touching my back and touching me. And I didn't like that. So I got away from that guy as quick as possible. And, bye, see ya, out of here. He was very touchy and he just met me. But anyway, so back to the drink thing. Last night, I purposefully thought, okay, if I'm going to go to different bars and hang out and drink by myself, I wasn't really by myself. I was with these 2 guys that I met, but I didn't know them really. I mean, I felt comfortable with them. They were really nice men. But I also didn't really know them. I just met them. So when I would get to the bar, instead of ordering a drink and then running to the bathroom, like, oh my gosh, I have to pee, I would immediately just go right for the bathroom. And even the one guy was real sweet. He said, "Did you want me to order your drink for you when you go to the bathroom?" And I knew what I wanted already. I knew what I wanted, but I said, "No, that's okay. I'll order it when I come out." Because I just didn't feel, I thought, I can't have anybody else manage my drink for me tonight. Like, I have to have that drink in my hand or look at that drink, never look away from it, never put it down. And I say that with just hearing these nightmare stories about people who are taken advantage of. I was very cautious with that one. So I always made sure I had my drink right in front of me when I was conversing with anybody. I made sure my drink was in my sight, not even to the side, the right or left side of me. My hand was always like touching the rim. Sometimes I even play with the rim of my glass with my finger. I just really keep my drink in sight. And I honestly can tell you, you need to do that when you're out, especially if you're out alone. And I also, if someone's like, well, you shouldn't go out alone. Guess what? When you're alone and you're not dating anybody, or you're not with another person, or you just travel alone a lot because you want to be alone, you don't have to be with somebody every minute. You might want to go out. So these are tips for you to be safe when you do go out. So that was my tip with the drinks, tip with the Uber. And right now, like I said, I was shooting from the hip with this podcast this week, which I've been doing a lot lately because I want to be consistent with my podcasts for my listeners. I want you to listen every week, and I want you to enjoy it. I want you to take tidbits of information, and I want you to stand up and redo. So my stand up and redo for you is, I've never been roofied or been taken advantage of with drinks, or even really getting like too drunk. I am careful with how much I drink, especially when I am alone, Don't want to be out of control of myself. Want to have all my faculties and wit about me. So I have 2 stand-up and redos. First one is related to the Uber driver. It is to do all those safety things that I told you about. And after my experience with the guy at my house, if I ever feel my gut, the minute I feel like that Uber driver is a creeper, I will pivot and just say, hey, I'll get off at this Sheetz right here, or this Wawa, or this, store, or I'll say, oh, there's my buddy at that Wawa. I see his car, or, drop me off. Or it's my boyfriend. Oh my gosh, I see my boyfriend. He's right there. Just drop me off here. He can give me a ride home the rest of the way. Just make up a story and get out of that car as quick as you can. So that's my stand up and redo with the Uber driver. Stand up and redo with going out at night is, don't let yourself get inebriated. Don't let yourself get so drunk or so high, if you do that you don't know where you are, or you might do something that you wouldn't do. And I truly believe, especially if you're traveling alone, to not let yourself get like that. Keep all your faculties about you. And thank you. I'm coming back to you because after listening to this, I feel compelled. I laughed a lot about that Uber driver and the way that he basically offered services for a massage, but I truly do have concern for young women and older women that are out, even with groups of other women or men, and just how after midnight things do go awry. And I just ask you to be careful, to be cautious, and don't trust anyone at all. Don't ever go alone with anyone. And if you feel like your gut is just telling you this isn't a safe situation, get out of it as quick as you can. And I say that with all seriousness because we're all going to go out. We're all going to be in those situations. We don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen in the middle of the day. So just be cautious, be careful, go with your gut, and honestly get out of any situation as quick as you can once you see it going awry, and feel no guilt about that at all. So I just really need to share that. I know I might sound forceful and aggressive, but I have a heart, especially for women who are traveling alone. And thank you. Hi, I'd like to give credit to Sarah Gephardt for the cover page of this podcast. This podcast is a work based on the personal experiences, reflections, and memories of the speaker. The events described are true to the best of the speaker's knowledge and recollection. Some names, locations, identifying characteristics, and timelines have been changed or altered to protect the privacy of the individuals involved. In some cases, composite characters have been created or dialogue has been reconstructed based on memory.
The intention of this podcast is not to defame, malign, or harm any individual or entity. Rather, it is to share the speaker's journey with honesty, vulnerability, and integrity. Any opinions expressed are solely those of the speaker and are not intended as statements of fact regarding any person, group, or organization. Listeners should keep in mind that human memory is inherently subjective and selective, and while every effort has been made to ensure accuracy, this podcast reflects the speaker's perspective and truth. Thank you.